Hey there, welcome to Mighty Monday. I think we are officially live. And yeah, this is my show, Mighty Monday. And then your host, Mae Renfroe. And I have a guest on with me this Monday, Melissa Miller. So I'm excited what she's going to be sharing with us. And I actually was a guest on her podcast recently, too. So, yeah, we were she's going to be talking about caregiving and like loss and grief, and that's kind of what I did over on hers. It was a similar thing, so and the same thing, but she's on mine. And Melissa is um, uh, a nursing assistant and a business caregiving coach. So you said, Melissa. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And just before we get going, I just want to let everyone know that last Monday I kind of had technical errors, which sometimes happen, and we weren't able to do with a guest that Monday. So it's funny to do that. If you've missed, that's what happened. And I hope you've had a good week last week and a good Monday. Ours, me and Melissa was just saying we had a good day, but it was busy. Right?
Yes.
Busy. That that happens. That's life. So, but here we are, and we're excited to get into this. So, I hope all of those that will be joining now or watching later, that there'll be some great content here for you and what you're going through, and that you've had a good day. So, Melissa, welcome. If you could just go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of who you are and where you are in life, and then we can go on with what else
Excuse me.
you are going to share with us.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. I hope you're doing well. And yes, if you've had a chaotic Monday, I hope it calms down for you. Mondays tend to, May and I were just talking before we went live that Mondays tend to be kind of heavy for us. So if that's
Yeah,
you, just take a deep breath and just enjoy this conversation. That's my hope and prayer for you. But if
yeah.
you're not familiar with me, I'm Melissa Miller. I'm a former certified nursing assistant. I practiced in long term health care for 15 years with the elderly and dementia patients. And for the past 4.5 years, I have been the primary caregiver for my husband when he was unexpectedly diagnosed with epilepsy in July of 2020. And I'm also a stay at home mom. I have a 5-year-old daughter. And today I'm the creator of Caregiving Entrepreneurship Reimagined.com. And over there, I am passionate about helping other entrepreneurs who are balancing the chaos of caregiving and parenthood and running an online business all at once, and also too just dealing with the other aspect of caregiving that we will all face is loss, of dealing with loss,
Yeah.
because that is something I recently had to go through. I was also for a while a sandwich generation caregiver because I was caring for my husband, and then for the last 4 years obviously, but over the last 2 years I was caring for my father, my aging father, following my mother's death. We moved in with him when she passed away in September of 2021, and then he passed away in on July 21st of 2023 of last year. And so I've had to navigate the journey of loss while
Mm,
still being a mother, while still being a business owner, and dealing with my own health issues, and also just being a caregiver because my husband, he had
yeah.
a phase of being stable with his epilepsy, but actually he's had a couple seizures in the last month. And so we've had to get with our team,
Mm,
and he's had to start some new medication. And so now I'm on back, in the really, full alert, caregiving mode, to make sure that he's safe, because we're having to watch to see how he does with this treatment and for any reactions and breakthrough seizures and the whole shebang. So, but yes.
yeah. Wow. Okay. So you're into a lot of things. I like that. Yeah. And so that you're helping others that are in that, trying to balance everything or in life, and yeah, being there for your husband, and that is a lot to keep up with. Wow. I really
It is. It is.
I'm happy.
Well, and it's interesting, we all will be statistically, you will all be a caregiver for somebody at your life because we have the age gap with our parents, our grandparents, and eventually our spouses at some point. But obviously we think of it more of like, I know with me, with knowing my medical background and history and training, you anticipate that more like 65 or older when the kids are grown and
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
house and raising families of their own and pursuing their own careers, and you're just dealing with the natural breakdown of the body when the body starts to get is older and has more issues. You anticipate that. You don't anticipate it when you're dealing when you just had a baby and
Yeah.
you're be new parents, and then all of a sudden you get hit with a chronic illness that is incurable. Had no prior medical
Yeah.
history. My husband had no prior medical history
Oh,
of
wow.
epilepsy in his family. Typically, it is diagnosed either as a child, or obviously if you have a little bit of warning, like if someone in your family has epilepsy. But he's in that 20% of the population where he just contracted it. And unfortunately,
Mm,
seizure disorders, neurological disorders like that, there still isn't a lot of wherewithal, um, research about how it works, because we're dealing with the brain, the ultimate organ that God gave us, right? And so there's not like a streamlined
mhm,
protocol. It's really kind of a guinea pig approach where you just try different medications, see if they work. Sometimes people need
mm,
surgery, some people need device placements. So it's been quite the roller coaster of having to see him go through what he's had to go through, because it's been a lot of
mhm,
trial and things not working out well, and a lot of extra seizures and trauma and things like that.
mm. Wow, it sounds like, yeah. Um, wow, so when did this kinda start, um,
So
for you with
we
him?
yeah, so it was interesting. He had his first seizure in December of 2019, and it was at 4:30 in the morning, and it didn't look like a seizure. It was really weird. We woke up at 4:30 in the morning to change our daughter's diaper, and I stepped out of the room to do something, and he was changing our daughter's diaper, and I came back in to check on him to see if he needed help, and he had this weird glazed look over his face. And I asked him, I said, "Are you okay?" He got 3 words out, "I don't know." And good thing I caught our daughter just in time, and he fell backwards, hit the floor really
Oh,
hard. He was only out for just a couple of seconds, but our daughter started crying.
yeah,
It scared me, and he came to, and he had no recollection of it, of that the fact that he passed out or that he could feel himself passing out. Now, initially, I thought, well, thinking with my medical training, we're both working 40 plus hours at that point in our jobs. We're sleep deprived because we have an almost 1 year old
yeah, I
that
know
we're
what that's
taking care of,
like.
right? And so I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe it's just that, and my husband is almost 20 years my senior. So with him being at the
Mm,
time, with him being in his early 50s, dealing with a 1 year old in your early 50s is a lot different than when you're in your 20s or 30s, like I was. So I was in my early 30s at the time. So I was thinking maybe a chemical imbalance, something simple. We could just, get him some supplements or have him see the doctor to do some blood work to see what's going on. I never for a million years thought it was a seizure disorder. But that's how seizures look. They're not like what you see on TV, where sometimes people are frothing or shaking, or like, having these huge, huge tremors. But that was the first seizure. And kudos to his doctor for catching on right away, because that was before Christmas. So after the new year in January of 2021, we started working with a neurologist, because his primary said,
mhm,
"You know what? This looks like something neurological, or maybe neurological, and
mm,
I don't have the training, so we're going to refer you." And good thing we did, because his health only declined. He had another episode in March of that year, and then in April, that was the worst month ever. That was his first month that he had 10 to 20 plus seizures a month, average,
mm.
all the way through October of that year. Because
Wow.
yeah, because
Wow.
we tried multiple medications. We transferred again over to a neurologist specialist, because they had more medicines and procedures and things that we could try if needed. And it's just been a journey since then. We've had
Yeah,
pockets where
yeah,
he's been
sounds
pretty
like, yeah,
stable,
yeah,
and been able to drive a little bit, but then like right now we're in a place again where he's unstable because he's having seizures, and he's having to restrict his driving for safety. So it's been different.
yeah,
It's a new season again.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Something you never really probably expected was
No, no,
in the
I like I
radar, what you say,
No,
you
I had
know?
anticipated,
Mhm,
like, old age and things like that, when he's, like, 80 and I'm 60 and I'm having to care for him in
mhm,
that capacity, but not this soon, or back then 4 years ago, this soon, when we're
yeah,
having raising a new baby, and just starting our family, and dealing
yeah,
and being hit with something even more so that's incurable, and he had no medical history of. You anticipate the
yeah,
stuff that that is in your family tree, but certainly nothing
yeah,
that's out from left field like it was for us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've seen someone left us a comment, "Hi,"
Mhm.
on there. Yeah, and so how did this kinda evolve now that you're, um, like, really helping others in this space, in the same place,
Right, right.
going through what
So what
that
happened was, so, well, obviously back in 2020, we were all dealing with the pandemic. My husband and I continued to work up until May when in April and May, things he started missing a lot of work because of the 10 to play 20 plus seizures a
Yeah.
month. And because we had a 1-year-old daughter, I realized it's not safe because there is rescue medicine that when he has a seizure, I need to give him to stop the seizure because basically what's happening, for those of you who aren't aware, when someone has a seizure, it's your brain's firing off signals that should not be there. And every subsequent seizure is causing damage. That's why it's common for people to have a lot of short-term memory loss after they've had a
Mhm,
seizure. They don't recollect because, there's damage to the brain. And if it goes untreated long enough, it could impact their long-term,
mhm,
memory. So it's very serious. So with those things to consider, I decided, you know what? It's not safe for me to be working outside the home. But then again, I was like, what am I going to do? I only have a background in healthcare as a CNA. I don't have an
mhm,
MBA. I don't have a bachelor's. I don't have a master's. I don't have any X amount of experience that a lot of people, when I started job hunting around May of 2020, were needing. I didn't have X amount of years and X amount of experience, even for, telemarketing and things like that.
mhm,
And plus, some of those jobs too, the problem was, excuse me, they weren't very flexible. So I couldn't just drop things if I needed to triage my husband for having a seizure or take care of our 1-year-old daughter if something happened. So the only way out I really found was creating my own business. And I do not have
mhm,
a background in business or marketing. So this was totally new to me. But the cool thing was of how the way God opened up the doors for me to just jump in feet first, even though I had
mhm,
no clue what I was doing, and have the chance to meet with and work with and just help people and share my story and create this outlet for me that really was on my terms, how I wanted, and
mhm,
allowed me to share my knowledge as being in healthcare for 15 years and also being a personal caregiver with my husband for 4 years, my dad for two. I also helped care for my grandmother till she passed away the last 2 years of her life. So, taking all these experiences, even though they were hard, helping people who do not have any prior experience, personally or professionally, of how to cope and create systems to manage the chaos that comes with caregiving.
mhm. Oh, wow. Well, that's neat. So you were able to take your experiences and things and then, yeah, and to help others, and it's kind of an outlet for you, as you mentioned, something
Absolutely.
that
Yeah,
you must be very passionate about, that you really enjoy.
I do, and that's why I really like coaching, because coaching entails having a meaningful relationship, having a meaningful conversation with someone who's struggling, and that's what I love most about coaching is because, I mean, obviously, yes, my clientele is for the most part will be virtual, on
Yeah.
Zoom or a call or anything, but I love that. I love getting to meet people from all over the world. Same thing with my podcast, getting to have conversations with people all over the world, sharing stories, and just putting content out there that's uplifting and can help someone through a really tough season where they don't have the benefit of prior healthcare experience, or maybe because of some really other hard things that have happened
Mhm,
with their relationships with their family, or just maybe distance because their families live really far away out of state from where they're at and they can't help with their caregiving situation. Just being a support system for them when nobody else can.
mhm. Oh, wow. For meeting them there. Oh, that's neat. Um, yeah, and can you talk about how your faith plays into all of this? I know you're
Yes,
pretty
absolutely.
pretty solid, right, in Jesus?
Yeah.
Mhm,
Excuse me. I have to admit, like with whenever we go through a hard situation and trauma, there are those moments where we go, "Why? Why,
yeah,
Lord? Why did this happen?"
yeah.
I definitely went through that. I definitely tapped out and burned out. I really did not prioritize my time with the Lord, my mind, body, and soul, physical wellness, mental and emotional wellness to deal with the trauma that I'd gone through as a caregiver, because you do go through trauma, seeing your
Yeah.
loved one go through hard things, and then just being in this heightened state of when waiting for the other shoe to drop, essentially, you know, because you're always
Oh,
on alert, like
okay.
you're waiting. It's tough, right? And
Yeah.
so I did
Yeah.
nothing to really focus on that aspect of my caregiving journey when I started this journey. And by 2021, I was tapped out and burned out. I was really sick because I had undiagnosed IBS I didn't know about at the time. I was just emotionally and spiritually and emotionally just
Mhm.
drained. It's like because it was just so
Mm.
much I was doing it on my strength and not the Lord's. And
Okay.
one of the best things I did was just start slow. And because there's so many aspects of wellness, and obviously you can't do it all, but starting on something really is important. And the first thing I actually did was focus on my spirituality. So I worked with
Mhm.
two Christian life coaches. For I did one, in some of their conjoined programs because they do stuff conjoined and then they have separate businesses. So then I hired one of them and I did a 3-month intensive in a cohort with her. And that was the best thing I ever did because it got me back into the scriptures. It got me into a place of where I figured out some little tips that could help me have meaningful time with the Lord when I was so busy and when it felt like I didn't have time. And it just helped me give that peace, you know?
Mhm.
Excuse me, sorry. Even though I still had those moments and those hard days like we all do of this is hard or this is not going the way I wanted and why, Lord? But I
Yeah.
still got that peace. And it's
Yeah.
kept me going and my heart hasn't grown bitter. I know there's people out there I'm sure who um they're strong in the faith but then when something really traumatic like this happens to them, they turn away from the faith. Some of them turn
Yeah.
away, but I really credit, just getting back down on my knees and going and just taking that time to doing that intensive work of doing a lot of
Yeah.
journaling, diving into scripture. That has really helped me in
Oh, wow.
coping and keep going through this
Yeah.
journey. And even now when this, I'm only almost up to almost a year since I lost my father and I lost my mom almost 3 years ago. So, it's and
Yeah.
I'm only 39 and I've already lost both my parents. That's tough. That's a hard hit.
It is. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, for sure.
to go through that and then still have to take care of I'm a mother. I have a beautiful 5-year-old daughter who I'm so thankful for, who's our miracle, but I'm
Yeah.
also a caregiver still to my husband. There's still a lot on my plate. And I
Yeah.
have my
A
own
lot.
and I have my
I'll
own,
take care.
chronic health issues to manage on
Mm.
top of that, so stress just makes those worse. But with all that said, such a piece of, like I feel like I'm constantly living in chaos to some degree, but at the
Mhm.
same time, God gives what does it say in the Bible? He gives the peace that passes all understanding. So somehow I'm
I love
still
that.
going. And,
Yeah.
I mean, and with that being said, I'm not going to say at all that I don't still have days where I cry really hard or I yell or
Mhm.
I feel frustrated. We're human. God created us to be human beings. And so we have freedom of expression and we have emotions. And so don't feel shame for feeling those emotions. They're there for a reason. The trick is to just, you know, release them in a healthy way. That's kind
Mm.
of where you need to kind of go with it. But never feel shame for feeling what you're feeling because life
Mm.
is hard. God
Yeah.
didn't promise
It
that
is.
this life would be easy, but He did promise that He would always be there for us and
Oh,
sustain us.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that has been something I have just been really leaning into. And one of the verses that just really stuck with me, that has really stuck with me from back
Mhm.
in 2021 when I did the cohort with my Christian life coach was
Mhm.
Colossians 3:17, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. So when I'm taking
Mm.
care of my daughter, when I'm
Yeah.
taking care of my husband, when I'm taking care of my home, cleaning the
Mm.
dishes, doing the
Yeah.
fifth load of laundry for the week,
Yeah.
working on my business, talking with my clients, hosting calls for my business coach, whatever I'm doing, it's something. I'm doing it for His glory in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. Now, is everyone that I work with a believer? No. Is my business Christian based? No, I've chosen not to go that way, but it still doesn't mean I can't be a hope and a light for somebody. And that's
Yeah.
what God has given me to do. And
Yeah.
I just have a knack for how the body works. I just have loved
Yeah.
that's why the whole reason I got into the healthcare industry for 15 years. And I love and I'm so thankful that even though I'm not practicing as a CNA anymore, I still get to use that knowledge that I gained to
Yeah.
be able to take care of multiple family members, so I can
Yeah.
help because I remember when I was caring for my grandmother, my family really leaned on me because they're like, "We're clueless, help, what do we do? We don't know what to do this, we don't know
Yeah.
anything about transfers or positioning
Yeah.
or watching for, signs of stroke, we don't know any of that stuff, you do." So, it
Yeah.
has been
Oh,
so
wow.
cool to see
Yeah.
how the gifts and talents that I gave, because he does give us all unique gifts and talents, to see how God has used it for something different, especially too from the business side of segueing into
Mhm.
a new career without any other prior experience. So I can be at home with my family, and I can also just it also gives me something creative and fun to do too, to
Mhm.
have a creative outlet.
Yeah, sounds like so it's helping you as you're helping others, it's helping you too. It's like a
Yes.
win-win. I love how that works. I love how you said how you found, you know, God's peace to be that peace that surpasses all human understanding. It still was hard. You're saying how hard, and there's days that just really hurts more than other days, or times when you can't understand why, make sense of it, but you still can find that peace in God when we
Mhm.
surrender. And we have to do a part, I think, to keep our minds on him. There's the verse in Isaiah 26:3 that said that he'll keep us in perfect peace, those who keep their minds on him. So we keep our minds on the things, above, and we're to let the peace of God rule in our hearts too. So how to do our part. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
all have choice. We have a choice to either receive what God gives us
Yeah.
and to let him have control, or we can try to do it on our own strength. Believe me, when I tried to do it on my own strength, nothing worked. I was stressed,
Yeah.
I was a lot
Yeah.
sicker, I just could not cope, I couldn't get through my days.
Yeah.
It just didn't work.
Yeah.
There's such a huge difference when you let the Holy Spirit just dwell in you and do it on his strength, and even if it's just 15 minutes at a time. Y'all, I get it. Some days it's like, "I'm losing my mind, I can't take another hit today. Help." And it's okay to be like that.
Yeah.
That's part of being a human being, right? Where we
Yeah.
have those moments where we
That's
go, but those are the most crucial moments where we have to say, "Okay, God, not on my strength, but on yours. I am freaking out right now. I'm overwhelmed, but
yeah.
I'm gonna trust you with this, and I know I can trust you to
Yeah.
understand how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling angry right now, if I'm
With
feeling
a heart.
frustrated, if I'm feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
he knows us better than we know ourselves, and
Yeah.
he knows what we're gonna go through. He said the Bible says, "I knitted you in your mother's womb," and it goes all the way to, the end of knowing the amount of days that we will have on this earth.
Yeah.
With what kind of better peace can you ask for than knowing that God knows the beginning and the end of the story? I think if we knew the whole
Yeah.
it was interesting, I can't remember who I had this conversation with, but there was someone I remember having a conversation with where we talked about, like, what if we could know the total end of our story? And we both came to the conclusion that, you know what? I think that's better that we don't know. Because I
Oh,
think
okay.
because I
Yeah.
think if we did know everything, there would just be this ounce of, like, extra stress and extra fear because of anticipation of, like, "Oh, I know this is coming, but it's gonna be, in X amount of days or X amount of minutes." That's no way to live. That wouldn't be any good quality
Yeah.
of life, and it would totally defeat the purpose of trusting God,
I
right?
like that, and
Yeah,
resting in him.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Resting in.
s So
I'm
I
sorry.
think that's done on purpose. I think God doesn't want us to know everything
Mhm.
or has it that we don't know everything
Yeah.
because that's how we learn to
Yeah.
trust him, and to not do it in our own strength. I mean, it's not to say with our human nature that it's easy and that we don't goof up about it, but it's important, right? It's important that we learn that skill of trusting and resting in our Heavenly Father.
Yeah. And resting that we don't know, but
Yeah.
he knows. So we
And that
don't know.
whatever
Yeah.
happens, and having that peace of and trust of, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, I really don't know what's going to happen, but I know that whatever does happen, I won't be alone.
Mhm.
I know that God will sustain me and my family. He has a plan and it'll be okay
Mhm.
and I will come through.
Yeah.
you know, and that God can handle my anger, that God can
Mhm.
handle my frustration, that
Yeah.
God can handle my grief, that God can handle my sorrow, that God can handle my uncertainty with that and the fear that comes with the unknown. But he already knows, so he knows that we're going to feel that way
Yeah.
and that it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. He knows us, completely,
Yes.
intimately. Yeah. Yeah. I see we got some hearts there earlier. I see Miss Liz is
Yes. Hey,
on.
Miss Liz.
Victoria. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, wow, God just knows us so well. And I love Psalms 139, that says that just we got wherever we are in whatever state, whatever we're going through, that He knows us, He sees us.
Mhm.
Uh,
And Romans
yeah,
8:28, and
yeah,
we know that, everything works to good, all
yeah.
things work to good for those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose in Christ Jesus. So, good or bad, I mean, I could never have thought that I would be doing the things I am thankful. I mean, even though I would never wish my husband's illness on anyone, and I really wish I could cure him and that he wouldn't have to go down this road, but at the same time, it's brought us closer. It's made us really savor our time with our daughter. We do not
Yeah.
take our time together for granted anymore.
Oh, I
And
bet. Yeah.
and I really soak up the opportunities I get with my business. The
Oh,
chance
wow.
to do what I do, to
Yeah.
have to touch to do the work I do. It's and I know it's not done. I mean, I'm in a season now where I'm kind of revamping and
Yeah.
updating some things to make it better because I've had some interesting downloads from the Lord this last week. So it's like,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
yeah. So, but
Okay.
yeah, the clarity, but and it happens in seasons. It's not going to happen
Yeah.
all at once, and it's okay. It's okay. As a caregiver, you're going to have different seasons. You're going to have that beginning phase of of having to get acquainted with the diagnosis and getting through that learning curve of understanding what the symptoms are, what's normal, what's not normal,
Mhm.
treatment options, what your loved one's baseline is. Because again, I know with epilepsy and seizures, you could have 50 people in the same room. I guarantee you, every single one will be on a different dose of medication, need
Oh, okay.
different
Yeah.
procedures. Everyone's different. They can have the
Yeah.
same diagnosis, but have a whole different experience.
Mhm.
So, as a caregiver, you have to learn what your loved one's baseline is because, again, it could be so different. Like the textbooks will say one thing, and the doctors will tell you one thing, but your loved one has their own unique God given body that they were created with, and it's going to have a different reaction to the illness than the next 50 people. And so, you got to get through that learning curve of learning what the basics are of that illness and then learning what the baseline and so-called normal is for your loved one and then getting a rhythm with how you manage
Mhm.
it and how you document it, how you uh, relay information to your loved one's medical team, how you decide what
Mhm.
is worth it and not worth it in terms of treatment. You have to make decisions, obviously, from your loved ones. You
Mhm.
become an advocate, so especially if they lose the ability to advocate for themselves, like if they become nonverbal because of their illness or whatever.
Yeah.
But even so, then you have to, like I've told my husband, I said, look, I obviously have medical training and I know some things, but there's obviously a lot about your illness I don't know, and I'm learning right alongside you. But at the end of the day, it's your body. I want what you want. So, if you say that you do not feel comfortable with doing something, I'm in your corner.
Mhm.
I will make sure that I will advocate and say no. It's like, okay, do not my husband does not feel comfortable with X, Y, and Z. Please find us another alternative because this is
Okay.
not a path
Yeah.
down we want to go.
Yeah.
And it's a process, it's a journey. And I guarantee you, I know for me, how I do a lot of the same things since day one of our journey, but at the same time, there's other things that have gotten faster and easier
Mhm.
because I've had so long with this illness and I've learned so much more about it and how and what his baseline is and what his symptoms and triggers are. It's gotten easier, and I have that shorthand with his medical team now. So it's a process. It's
Yeah.
not
No, it
supposed to
sounds like.
happen
Yeah.
overnight. And the
Yeah.
same thing is true in
Yeah.
your spiritual
Yeah.
journey. It's gonna feel like you're going through the fire.
Yeah.
But it's just like, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego in the fire. They were in
Yeah.
the ultimate holy fire, but they still came through unscathed. I promise
Mhm,
you,
mhm.
if you trust and lean into the Lord from day one, even when you don't feel like it, He will bring you through the fire because He certainly has for our family. If we didn't have the Lord, I don't know where we would be today, honestly.
Oh, wow. Amen. Like you said, that is so good. And yeah, and that's, same for me and my story and people, the ones that know, from our loss of our son and all that. And just, yeah, I don't know where I would be without the solid rock of God carrying us and taking us through. And sometimes we go through these things. I mean, like you said, with mentioned the fire. I mean, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, God didn't save them from it. They had to go. They went in it, but He saved them in it and through it. Right? He
Mhm.
was there with them all the way through it, and they come out on
Unscathed,
scattered.
yes, which
Yeah,
is so
completely.
crazy to think about,
Yeah.
right? But that's what God does with us,
Hmm.
and He also, and sometimes too, we have to remember He's not doing things to harm us. We live in a broken world, a sinful world. It's just the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. Not fun,
Hmm.
I know.
Hmm.
But, sometimes we have to go through the fire to come out the inside unscathed and to come through with our new purpose. I know, speaking for both of us, I'm sure that um the hardships we've gone through are painful and we wouldn't wish them on anybody, but at the same time, if we hadn't gone through those experiences, we wouldn't be where we are today, where we're in a position to be
Hmm.
used by the Lord to serve and bless others, in a way that
Yeah.
maybe
In this way, in
that's
this captivity. Yeah.
yeah, that other people that are just
Capacity.
really struggling and in so much pain and stress and fear and anxiety, and they're just looking for a way out. And so, whoever's listening, excuse me, um, your voice matters. Your story matters. Sharing your story can not only be beneficial in your healing process, but man, it could be a great way to inspire other people too, to understand that they're not the only ones, and
Yeah.
that, what, hey, if I open my mouth, maybe somebody else who really needs it, who was where I was, X, Y, and Z, months, years, days, weeks ago, understand that they're not alone, and that
Yeah.
someone has been through their experience, and that they can make it through. Okay. So never feel, excuse me, shame or embarrassment for sharing your story because it matters. Your voice matters. And, as the body of Christ, we come alongside each other, right? And sometimes we don't, we can't read but as human beings, we can't read each other's minds. We don't
Mhm.
know what's going through, um, what everyone is going through behind closed doors. So sometimes you being the pro, being the one to initiate, to take that first step of sharing, makes people feel safe and more open to share, to realize, to go,
Mhm.
okay, she's going through that. Yeah, over here, I'm dealing with that too. And then you
Mhm.
guys can come together and have that camaraderie, because we all need
Mhm.
somebody to support us. And especially when we're dealing with intense situations of dealing with grief and loss, caregiving, we need people alongside of us that have actually walked that path, because they actually get it.
Yeah.
As
They
well-meaning
truly
as
understand.
family and friends are, there's something so much powerful when you're actually working with somebody and building a relationship, a meaningful, going back to those meaningful relationships with someone that actually gets it,
Mhm.
that understands those same feelings, those same emotions, the same fears, the same experiences, the same trauma after, or impacts on your health, even maybe, of dealing with going through those types of situations.
Oh, yeah, completely. When you know someone that knows and understands you. I really noticed that after losing, our son, and when someone would tell me that they lost a child too, that it just really helped, that I realized they knew what I was going through. They knew, and you didn't even have to have a lot of communication, just being in their presence.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah,
right.
that
Yeah.
validation, we all wanna be validated, we all
Mhm.
wanna, go like, this matters, or I've been through this, and this is what I'm feeling, and this has been so hard.
Mhm.
You get the most validation when you're having a conversation via
Mhm.
video chat, a text, or an email, when you're talking with someone that actually gets it, when they've actually gone through the
Yeah.
same experience or a similar experience, they get that. And like you
Yeah.
say, that just having that, I know for me, sometimes having a lot of conversation has been helpful, but sometimes even just knowing that
Mhm.
this person's been through what I've been through, just knowing that just gives me such a peace of feeling like, "Oh gosh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. I'm not going crazy. I'm not a
Yeah.
crazy person." Like there's other people on the God's planet that are dealing with the same experiences or the same feelings and emotions that I am from going through this experience. So validation is huge, especially when it comes from people that have actually gone through the same experience, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. That's tremendous. Yeah. Yeah. I was just
Absolutely.
like, yeah, how you have peace through it all and how you explained that that's big, and I think that's will help give encouragement to others just right there, just seeing your faith and um, what's possible in God. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. You have to be willing, and like it wasn't last year, but the year before when I did my word of the year. I haven't done actually one for
Okay.
this year, but,
Okay.
a couple years ago, one for that season, the biggest thing, because I was struggling with trying to get some direction with my business as well, and also just with this whole journey I've been on, the word that instantly came to mind was surrender.
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 Okay.
So what in your life right now do you need to surrender? Maybe it's the timeline of your business or your outlet. Like if you're a creative, like May and I
Yeah.
are, maybe it's surrendering the timeline of treatment, of understanding that, especially with someone who has chronic health conditions, myself, or, caring for someone with multiple people. My father had a lot of chronic health issues as well, and
Mm,
caring for my husband. Chronic health issues are tough because they don't have a black and white answer for treatment a lot of the time. There's all these it's waves. Sometimes you're up, it's like, "Oh, good, we're having some good days, things seem to be stable, things seem to be doing better." But then there's a lot of or peaks and valleys if you wanna do that. Sometimes you're
mhm,
up here like,
mhm,
"Oh, yay, we're having some good days, things are
mhm,
stable, no episodes," but then, oh, something triggered it, be it maybe they got sick or a treatment had its shelf life, and so now you
mhm.
have to start back over at square one, so then now you're in a valley. You're gonna have peaks and valleys. And so how can you just be open to surrendering? And that's where that trust in, because if you think about it, surrender and trust go in tandem with each other.
Mhm.
God, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know how long it's gonna take for my husband to get stabilized. Yes, I'm hoping he'll be by August, like what our team is hoping. But God, you're in control. And whatever happens, happens, and I want your will. And I want this to go as smoothly as possible without other side effects. So, Lord, if it means that it's longer than 2 months, so be it. But God, I would love it if we can. But obviously, there is that part of me like, Lord, I would like this treatment to work in 2 months, like we're hoping, and we can get him back to other activities, like being able to be released to drive again, for that independence
Yeah.
and things like that. Um, but again, there's that piece, like we talked about earlier in this conversation, of I don't know what's going to happen,
Mhm,
but I do trust our team that God gave us, that God blessed us with
mhm,
a great team. I do
mhm.
trust His provision. I trust that the blessing of being part of an awesome church and and being raised in a family of faith, people are praying for us and supporting us. So I know we're not alone in that aspect. And I'm just trusting the process. And I
Yeah.
trust that I will continue to receive the strength that I need to daily get up out of bed and be able to do what I need to do to take care of my husband. So whether that's triaging another episode, taking more notes because I'm noticing something new, and making that extra phone call to his medical team to say, "Hey, I'm seeing this. Do we need to do anything different?" And for my business, same thing. It's like I'm gonna put my content out there. I'm gonna revamp my content. I'm gonna put it out there, and however long it takes for me to figure out the sweet spot for getting my clientele, so be it. It's a process. It's a
Mhm,
journey, and I surrender the timeline, because when I try to do it on my timeline, again, nothing works. Nothing
mhm, mhm.
happens. and it only prolongs what
Yeah.
God, the blessings and the timeline that God has for me. So you have a choice. Do it on your timeline or your own strength, or surrender and do it on Heavenly Father's timeline, and being willing to be patient. I know everyone hates the word being patient. No one likes to be patient, but that's
Patient.
what it's, but patience, the fruits of
Oh,
the spirit, kindness, gentleness,
yeah.
patience, self-control,
Yeah.
self-control, patience, surrender. Those are huge in how you are
Mhm.
able to cope through this life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially if you're in a season of dealing with caregiving like I am, being a mother, and then also on top of it, dealing with loss, you
Yeah.
know, it's those things will overlap. Life doesn't stop. That's the biggest thing that hit me, I think, after my father passed away, is that, and also I was still reeling from losing my mother 2 years prior to that. It's like, you know, life doesn't stop.
No.
Grief and loss will happen, but I still am a wife. I'm still a caregiver. I'm still a mother. I still run a business. I have to keep showing up,
Mhm.
but it's at the same time, it's okay. It's okay to feel those feelings all at once. And it's
Mhm.
complicated and it's messy and it's uncomfortable, but it's okay and it's normal. And God understands that.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can do for yourself is to get on your knees and just invite God into the journey, into the process, into the conversation.
Yeah.
And then also reach out to people that are like-minded in the sense of that they're dealing with the same situations you were. Be it your pastor, be it a support group, virtual, online. I know since the
Yeah.
pandemic, uh, Facebook support groups have just blown up because there's been a lot more people that have had
Mhm.
lingering health issues because of COVID, or those health issues that were put on the back burner because of COVID being the focus, now are really,
Mm.
hardcore, getting out of control, and there's a lot more people that are having to care for their loved ones. So, get creative, look online, look on Facebook, it's a good place, or Instagram, and search by, maybe caregiving, or maybe even more specifically, I would say caregiving for, like, and interject the keyword of the specific illness. So, like, as using me as an example, it would be caregiving for someone with epilepsy or
Mhm.
diagnosed with epilepsy, and see what populates. There's a lot more coming up for you. So, look at those options, because it's okay, because it's also understandable too as a caregiver too. If you have, like, I'm lucky my husband has a good immune system and he's not dealing with a compromised immune system illness, but I
Mhm.
know some people out there might be. Maybe you're caring for someone with cancer, or some other autoimmune disease that makes it dangerous for you to really expose yourself to the public, and you do need to be at home. So leverage those online services, or hire a caregiver coach like myself, or maybe even a Christian life coach.
Yeah.
Get with somebody where you can have those meaningful conversations, but from the safety of your home. And there's also, and I will
Yeah.
say too, from my experience, both from working with my own Christian life coaches and business coaches, and doing what I'm and creating what I'm offering for my clientele, there's a lot of options out there, whether you want like a lot of, like, really, like, weekly hand holding, or like maybe kind of virtual, like, through text or just email,
Mhm.
conversation, or maybe it's like, like once a month you check in or
Yes.
something. So, and check in with your pastors too. I know with our church, I'm so thankful. We have a huge church. It's hundreds of people, but what I like is it still feels like a family. And all the pastors I've gotten to know, and you can drop in. I mean, set up an appointment with your pastor, or if you can't, or like with my church, you can still drop in, like, whatever pastors
Mhm.
available usually will take you and let you have a conversation with them. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
okay. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
okay. Unpack, leverage that, leverage whatever you can in terms of, or maybe another idea I would look at too. It's like, if your specific church or congregation of faith does not offer a support group or a grief support group,
Mhm.
look around in your community at other congregations of faith, because I know in our state, I've noticed, or at least where we live, I've noticed from time to time there's been other churches that are doing other things that maybe my church isn't. So
Mhm.
that's okay. Leverage that resource. Go for it. I'd rather you have that support and that resource than go without because you need it. You need it. You can't do it on your own. You need that
Mhm.
community. Community is so important, both spiritually and nurturing your faith, but more
Mm.
importantly, when you're going through the hard season of dealing with loss or dealing with the being, adding on this new responsibility of being a caregiver, you need that ounce of support. And I know for my church, we don't have a caregiving group, but when I lost my dad, I did a 12-week stint for our grief share group. It's a website
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
nationwide. It's called grief share, I think .org if I remember right. And they have chapters all over the country. And I found a chapter, my church actually has a chapter and they actually do the class for
Oh,
12 weeks. Um, Throughout the school year, they do it on Wednesday nights during our Wednesday night activities, and then on Sunday mornings they were doing a class because to also be
yeah.
flexible, understanding that maybe Sunday mornings work better. If you already go to church on Sunday
Yeah.
mornings,
Yeah.
that's the best time to go because maybe Wednesday night you're busy with school activities, because of your kids being in school during the school year, or you work and you can't, get off in time to come. So leverage that, and for a grief resource because I liked that because not only did I get the workbook and the curriculum, but as long as I was in the class, I also could go back online and watch the modules over, the lessons
Mhm.
over, and also they have other video content for different topics that you could also dive into for other resources to help you and encourage you along the way through your grief and loss journey.
Oh, wow. Oh, that sounds really good. That's very important. And I like that sounds so readily available to people.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
depending where
So
you live, but
yeah,
and
and
then
even Google, just Google
mhm.
just
Okay.
grief
Yeah.
resources, caregiving resources, to see because obviously with Google, if you go Google like near me, it'll
Oh,
populate
okay. Oh,
what
okay. Yeah.
resources are close to
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
look around in your area for what is available to you, and also and again, if it's undoable, for you to do it in person because of your own health or maybe your loved one's health or just maybe distance. Like the closest one is like an hour or two drive, and that's
Yeah.
a little more for you to handle. Look for virtual options, out there that maybe meet once a week or once a month or something. So you get some sort of connection with other people, even if it's just on Zoom, to have
Yeah.
a conversation and connect with other people that are dealing with similar situations, because you still need that. You still need
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there is a lot of groups out there. Yeah, for sure that do
Absolutely,
that.
a
And
lot
then
more than there used to be. I think
yeah,
it's
yeah,
definitely a
I
lot
think it's
more since because of,
gotten bigger.
COVID,
Yeah.
unfortunately, so
Yeah.
but there's more out there now, so you could definitely find a lot more
Mhm.
options.
Kind of like, I mean, I have my grief group called Grieving with Hope, and so it's the grief group where there's not been maybe a lot of it's not been that active, but a good over 3,500 members, I believe. And yeah, I started it to give hope and encouragement for those going through grief, and so grieving, but not without the hope of God. So I really want to, it's infused with that hope and share things, about that because there's so much just saying, groups can be really almost discouraging if they're always saying grief is forever and you whatever, but it is, but with the hope of God, I mean, it's grief gets easier, and there is hope in it and there is peace in it. And so
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to share for my group. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
that, and that is important to know that it's not gonna be forever. I know for me, it still hurts,
yeah.
like with
Oh, because
anyone.
it's
Yeah,
new. Yeah, like you
but yeah,
said.
but it will be different,
Yeah,
there'll be different things, you'll be fine, you go back to your life and,
yeah.
but then there will be those moments where something just makes you think of your loved one, so
Well, sure. Yeah,
don't beat yourself up when moments like that happen, you're
yeah,
gonna have moments where sorry, that happens, and
yeah,
don't feel shame for it or don't feel embarrassment. It's part of grief. Grief is something that you will have with you for the rest of your life. But I will say, like what May interjected, it doesn't mean that your life is over or that or that you can't still have a meaningful life and that you can't still find joy and
Yeah.
beauty and the life that God still has left for you to
Yeah.
live, okay?
Yeah.
It's just an element now of who you are, but it doesn't
Yeah.
define you. So it's
Yeah.
okay to still have those moments of missing your loved ones and sometimes the best way that you can heal and actually get through it is doing something that connects you to your loved one. The odd thing for me is my father was a Friends pastor for 33 years, and then he did over a decade as a chaplain for a hospice agency. And over this past school year, our children's pastor at my church has
Mhm.
needed help, volunteers in our preschool and kindergarten department, and that's actually the age my daughter is right now. She's going into kindergarten next year. So I've actually been volunteering a lot on Wednesday
Oh, good.
nights.
Yeah.
And that has been actually really healing for me. I was actually talking with our children's
Okay.
pastor about that a couple weeks ago. I said it's been so interesting how I have felt a connection to daddy by
Yeah.
helping out at church because I'm a pastor's daughter and everything. And
And then
obviously,
yeah.
yeah, and so it's been great to kind of connect to that passion that daddy
Yeah.
loved with being a pastor. I could never do it, but kudos to him because that was the gift, the unique gift that God gave him, and how cool to honor him to be volunteering and helping out in the church. I did a lot when I was a teenager, and growing up in the churches that we
Yeah.
pastored at, but I really haven't done anything since then, and so it's been kind of interesting to go full circle and now be helping out in the children's department that my daughter is. So and it's been
Oh,
healing.
good.
So
Yeah.
maybe
Oh,
for
wow.
those listening,
That's
maybe
nice.
that could be another way for you to heal is
Yeah.
what is something that your loved one was really passionate about or enjoyed,
Yeah.
and maybe it might be healing for you to pursue
Yeah.
learning more about that passion and doing some dipping your toes in it a little bit because you
Oh,
never
that's
know.
neat.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
never
and be,
know.
like, honoring them, kind of remembering,
Absolutely.
and they're remembering so that and it sounds like it'd be very healing to you, and
It
then
has
you're
for
helping
me.
someone else in that way, so, oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
I like
It
that.
it
Well,
really
I
has.
okay. Say, well, I have liked just everything you've shared, so, I think we've probably said about all, we need to on our time together. It's been great, and, boy, you've been through a lot in these last few years, but you've got your solid rock in Jesus. So I like to see that. So just thank you so much for sharing all that with us. And I think it's very helpful for those that are in the middle of it and for what they're going through. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
It was a joy to have you on my podcast, and, I will send for your listeners I'll make sure that we get the link to that episode so they can
Oh, okay.
watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can, yeah, so
Okay.
definitely come over and check out my podcast, Caregiving and
Yes.
Entrepreneurship
Yes.
Reimagined.
Okay.
I post on YouTube, my blog, Apple, and Spotify,
Yeah.
every Monday. Obviously, same thing. I
Okay.
was sick over the last week, so I didn't get an episode out last week
Oh,
either.
that's much.
So
Oh, okay.
things happen.
Okay.
So life
Yeah.
happens. There
Sometimes
you
they,
go. Life happens.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
It
I
does.
usually try to
Okay.
post an episode once a week, and there's stuff we do stuff on. I do stuff on self care, on business, on
Yeah.
caregiving, and everything in between. So definitely be sure to check it out, and I will make sure I get May the link to that episode so
Put the
you guys
links
can
in the
rewatch it
description.
if you like it. Yeah, in the description box below.
Okay, sounds good. Yes, and I recommend anyone going over to you for your resources and so that you can help them with these things, like you said, in their caregiving and what they're going through. So, okay. All right. Well, take care, everyone, and take care, Melissa. It's been a joy to have you.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone. Good
Okay.
night.
Good night.